Hi, I'm Andy Acton from Frank Taylor & Associates, and today I'm going to talk to you about buying a dental practice in 9 steps. So let's look at the aims and objectives today. Firstly, we're going to break down the process of buying a dental practice, step by step. Next, we're going to look at a recommended chronology to acquire a dental practice. How to establish your budget, really important to understand how much you can afford. And lastly, the necessary mindset required to get through to the finish line. Benjamin Franklin famously said, "By failing to prepare, you are preparing to fail." Today is all about preparation and making sure that you're well set up to be successful in buying a dental practice. So let's look at step 1. The first step is all about location. Location, location, location. It's one of the very few things that you cannot change about a dental practice. Where it is. So choosing where that practice is absolutely critical. But remember, your perfect practice doesn't exist. So whilst the location's really critical in your decision making, there may be characteristics of the practice that don't quite suit. So the location is going to be your start point. That's going to be your wide view of where you want it to be. But when you come into a smaller level, it may not necessarily have the parking you desire, but it may be near a train station. And there might be some trading off because, as I say, that perfect practice may not be out there for you. So if you can get to 6 out of 10 on your perfect practice, that may be good enough to go and have a look and see if it's right for you. The second point is the daily grind. When you buy your dental practice, you're going to be visiting the practice 4, 5, 6 times a week. And that daily journey needs to work for you. Don't just try and visit the practice on a Sunday morning at 11 o'clock and go, well, it took me 20 minutes, that's okay. You might need to go at 7:30 on a Wednesday morning or 6 o'clock on a Thursday night, and just make sure that journey really does work for you. Because if you're going to be doing that on a daily basis for years to come, you don't want it to take away from the joy of owning a practice, but also create a significant amount of time between the practice and home. You know, those are going to be the 2 large elements of your life, your home life and your practice. And you don't want the piece in the middle to really start to grate. Jeff Margain says quite succinctly, the longer you commute, the less happy you're likely to be. So really take into account that journey from your home to your practice. Step 3 is about establishing your budget. This is critical. Really important that you understand how much you can afford when looking at dental practices. And you can do this in a number of ways. And a great way to start is by speaking to an independent financial advisor. What they're going to be able to do for you is assess your situation as you are at the moment. So that'll look at your assets and liabilities, what your personal grossing ability is, and give you an idea based on your own profile, what sort of practice you could afford. It may be at this stage you haven't found a particular practice. It doesn't matter. A good independent broker should be able to give you an indication as to what price range you could be working up to. Once you know your price range, you can then start looking more seriously at particular practices. What a good independent broker should also be able to provide you with is a pre-assessment certificate. So this is a document that says, I've looked at you, I've assessed your situation, and based on my understanding of the finance market, I believe you could borrow up to an amount of money. It might be 400,000, 600,000, $1 million, whatever that number is, but that's going to be a really good guide as to what you can afford. What you can also do is show that certificate to a vendor. When you're viewing a dental practice, it shows that you're serious and you're credible as a prospective purchaser, that you have a certificate that says, I can borrow up to a certain amount of money. The next thing is to consider size. Size matters. You need to be looking for a practice that fits with your comfort. So, if you've worked in a practice that's 1 or 2 surgeries and you're used to working with a small team, perhaps going to 5 or 6 surgeries might be a bit ambitious. It might be a bit overwhelming. But also the size will relate back to the previous point about budget. If your budget is up to, say, £600,000, that is unlikely to be a 4, 5, 6 surgery practice. So linking the size of practice that may be appropriate for you with your budget would make good sense, because then what you're going to be able to do is focus your attention on practices that are going to suit you, not only in terms of your perhaps management and leadership abilities, but to match your budget as well. And also it means there won't be any disappointment down the line when you're looking at a practice that you fall in love with that then you can't afford or you'd feel uneasy managing. So step 5, this is about experience, needs and ambition. And this is your current experience, what you would like to achieve from owning a practice and where your ambition is, where you'd like to take it. Your experience is based on what you've achieved and done within dentistry so far. So for example, if you've only worked in an NHS practice, looking at a high-end boutique private practice might not be right for you right now. It may be that you need to find a practice that's matched with your current experience, because in an ideal world, nobody wants to be involved in a transaction and nobody wants you to fail. So people are they're rooting for you. They want you to succeed. So what people should be doing is trying to match you with a practice that meets your current experience, because then that's going to improve your chances of success. But you may have needs beyond your current experience. You may have an idea, you may have a dream that you'd like to become a high-end private practitioner, but you don't have that experience yet. But to have a practice that might give you that ability to extend your clinical range in that direction will be an exciting thing. And that's where the ambition kicks in. Understand where you'd like to be in 5, 7, 10 years' time, and see if it's a practice that would give you that ability, that freedom to move in that direction. Step 6 is looking to use specialist advice. There's a lot of specialist advice out there, and people have walked this path before you. So don't try and reinvent the wheel and start from scratch. There will be specialist finance brokers. There's practice sales agents. There will be solicitors. There will be accountants. There will be people you know who have been through the process of buying a practice. Take on board that specialist advice. Someone's been there before, so use that knowledge and experience, because again, the more you can get now, the better you're going to be prepared when you find that perfect practice. Yes, those people may well charge you a fee, but it's well worth it. If they're good at what they do, you're going to get a great return on getting that expertise advice. It's much better than asking a friend in the pub who might not necessarily be able to give you good advice and good answers, and you then go in a direction that doesn't suit you. So step 7, this is about the practice viewing. You've gone through the selection process, you understand your budget, you know what sort of practice you want in terms of future ambition, you know the location, you know it's within an area that is an easy commute for you. So now you're going to get to visit a practice and view it. There's a few things to take onto consideration. So now you're going to get to a practice and you're going to view it. And there's a few things that you need to make sure happen at the viewing. To start with, common courtesy, turn up on time. Make sure you turn up on time and you introduce yourself so they know exactly who you are. It may be that there's a number of viewings taking place on the same day, so establishing who you are and building a rapport early on is really important, because what's going to happen is if the vendor's in a privileged position where they have to make a decision on who they feel is the most appropriate person to buy their practice, you want to stand out as somebody who made a good impression on the day. So the principal is effectively responsible for the leadership of the practice. Is it a well-led practice, to use a CQC term? Is it a practice that's been well-structured and well-managed? If it is, the leadership's coming from the principal. So that's going to reflect well on the principal, but it's going to be a good practice for you to step into, because lots of that groundwork in terms of how it's set up is working well. Are the teams stable? Have they worked in the practice for a number of years? Have they stayed in the same role? That's going to be an indicator that there's a good culture in the practice. Where there's a large turnover of people in the practice, that tends to indicate that there's something wrong with the culture. It's not a happy place to work where there's a high turnover of staff. So a good stable team more than likely indicates there's a good strong culture. Your future investment is going to be in the patients. That's where you're going to be deriving your future growth and where the income from the practice is going to come from. So the understanding the mix of patients is important. This is, are they local? What sorts of treatments have been delivered on the patients? Are they families? Are they all professional people? Do they live close to the practice? If the practice is near a train station, do they commute in and out of your area, or are they local? It will just give you a good flavour as to what the the mix of patients are, but also that's your investment for the future. So understanding the mix of that patient base is important. And a principal should be able to talk to you without necessarily breaching any confidentiality, the mix of that patient base. And the last thing is the data. What information has been available on the practice? Were the financial accounts up to date? Was there management information to bring the figures right up to date, up to the current date? If they are, then that gives an indication that the principal has a good handle on the numbers. There's good grip. They really understand the numbers within their practice. Again, that would suggest it's a well-led but well-run practice, and that's the sort of practice that you should be interested in. Step 8 is taking action. At some point, you're going to have to take some serious action. You've worked out where your practice wants to be. You've got your location sorted. You've worked out whether it's within easy reach of home. Is it commutable? You understand your budget. You've worked out, is it going to meet your future needs and ambition? You've gone through this whole process. You've viewed the practice. You've met with the principal. You've analysed the figures. At some point, you're going to need to make an offer. That offer is the next critical step in taking action. And be bold, be courageous. If it's a practice you want, go for it. If you're looking at this practice and you like the look of it, there's a very good chance other people are too. So be bold and take action. The last step is momentum. You need to keep the deal on track and going. You've made your offer. Your offer's been accepted. It's really exciting, but there's still work to do. There's hard work to be done. You need to work with your solicitor and your financial broker and your bank and the vendor and the broker. You need to work with everybody to make sure that momentum stays in the transaction. Where a transaction grinds to a halt, those are the deals that sometimes fall out of bed just because there's no momentum. If you can keep things happening on a daily basis, you're much more likely this transaction is going to get through to completion, ideally within a few months. But keeping everybody energized and it moving forward will give it a much better chance getting there sooner rather than later. And this last quote from Thomas Jefferson I love. If you want something you've never had, then you've got to do something you've never done. This captures all that's needed when buying a dental practice. And if you really want it, go for it and good luck. Thank you very much indeed for listening.